What if Yellowstone erupted like before? Imagine a calm morning in the western United States. Tourists stroll casually around Yellowstone's famous geysers, taking photos of the steam rising from the ground, unaware that beneath their feet lies one of the greatest ticking time bombs on Earth. Yellowstone is not just a beautiful national park with hot springs and wildlife fit as a supervolcano, a geological monster storing unimaginable amounts of energy. The haunting question is, what if Yellowstone erupted like it did before? Yellowstone has erupted catastrophically at least 3 times in Earth's history. The last massive eruption occurred about 640,000 years ago, carving out a caldera over 70 kilometers wide and spreading volcanic ash across much of North America. That eruption was thousands of times more powerful than typical volcanic events, dramatically altering the planet's climate. Scientists know Yellowstone is still alive, still breathing, and still holding the potential for another eruption. But what would happen if that terrifying scenario became reality? The first and most devastating impact would strike the local area. If Yellowstone erupted, the states of Wyoming, Montana, and Idaho would face total destruction. Pyroclastic flows, walls of superheated gas, and lava would sweep across the region, erasing entire towns in minutes. The land within 100 kilometers would be unrecognizable, consumed by fire, ash, and collapsing landscapes. Thousands of lives would be lost instantly, with little chance of evacuation. Then comes the ash. A supervolcanic eruption would launch billions of tons of ash high into the atmosphere. This ash would not stay local lit, would spread across the United States within days. Cities like Denver, Chicago, and even New York could experience ashfall thick enough to disrupt daily life. Airports would shut down, roads would become impassable, and millions of people would find themselves stranded. Breathing in volcanic ash is extremely dangerous, as it is sharp, abrasive, and damaging to the lungs. For agriculture and water systems, the impact would be catastrophic, but the consequences wouldn't stop at America's borders. Once injected into the stratosphere, fine ash and sulfur aerosols would spread around the globe, blocking sunlight. Earth would plunge into what scientists call a volcanic winter. Global temperatures could drop several degrees, leading to widespread crop failures. Entire harvests of wheat, rice, and corn might collapse, triggering food shortages in every continent. Billions could face hunger and famine. The economic system would collapse under such stress. Supply chains, already fragile in modern times, would disintegrate under food scarcity and transport breakdowns. Countries heavily dependent on imports would be hit first. Panic would spread faster than ash as markets crash, currencies lose value, and unemployment skyrockets. A global recession would quickly spiral into a depression, rivaling or surpassing anything humanity has ever endured. Human society would also face instability. Desperation for resources could spark conflict between nations. Wars over fertile land, clean water, and food supplies might erupt. Governments would declare emergencies, impose rationing, and struggle to keep order. In some regions, civil unrest and migration crises would dominate daily life. Yellowstone's eruption would not just reshape landscapes, could reshape geopolitics. Ecology would be devastated too. Ash blankets would smother forests and grasslands. Rivers and lakes would be poisoned by volcanic chemicals. Wildlife would face starvation as ecosystems collapse. Many species might not survive, leading to mass extinctions. The oceans, meanwhile, would undergo changes as atmospheric cooling alters wind patterns and ocean currents. Climate disruptions like stronger El Niño and La Niña cycles would bring more frequent floods, storms, and droughts worldwide. The human health crisis would be immense. Respiratory diseases from ash inhalation would spread, hospitals would overflow, and medical supplies would run out. Clean water would become scarce as ash contaminated reservoirs. Starvation and malnutrition would weaken immune systems, making populations more vulnerable to outbreaks of disease. Refugee camps would swell as people fled uninhabitable regions, creating hotbeds for epidemics, and yet humanity might not vanish. Our species is resilient. Governments and scientists would fight to adapt. Emergency food reserves would be distributed. Countries with advanced agricultural technologies might attempt to grow food indoors under artificial light. Some nations might even experiment with geoengineering, trying to alter the atmosphere to counteract volcanic winter. Survival would be possible, but life as we know it would change forever. What about recovery? History offers some hope. After the eruption of Mount Tambora in 1815, the world endured the year without a summer. Crops failed, famine spread, but human civilization endured. Yellowstone would be far more destructive, but eventually, ash would settle, skies would clear, the Earth's climate would slowly stabilize. Perhaps decades later, humanity would rebuild, adapting to a harsher but livable planet. Still, the world that emerges would not resemble the one we know. Nations may collapse, populations may decline drastically, and new centers of civilization could rise in areas less affected. Yellowstone could mark the end of one chapter of human history and the beginning of another. Fortunately, the likelihood of such a massive eruption happening anytime soon is extremely small. Scientists carefully monitor Yellowstone using seismic data, satellite measurements, and geothermal activity. They see signs of a dynamic, but not imminently dangerous system. Minor earthquakes and geyser activity are normal, not warnings of catastrophe. In other words, Yellowstone is alive, but it is not ready to explode. This doesn't mean the risk is zero. The Earth's history reminds us that supervolcanoes do erupt, and they will erupt again whether in 1,000 years or 100,000. Humanity must prepare, study, and understand these geological giants. Preparation may one day be the thin line between survival and extinction. So what if Yellowstone erupted like before? The immediate horror would devastate North America. The ash would choke the skies, and the world would plunge into volcanic winter. Humanity would face hunger, chaos, and unimaginable loss. And yet in the long arc of history, perhaps we would survive, adapt, and continue. In the end, Yellowstone is a reminder of our fragility. We may build skyscrapers, explore space, and master technology. But the Earth itself holds powers far greater than anything we control. A single eruption could test everything we have built. The question is not only whether Yellowstone will erupt, but whether we are ready when it does.